In a small, sleepy town nestled amongst rolling hills, there was a dilapidated Victorian house that stood abandoned at the edge of the woods. Locals whispered tales of its hauntings, claiming that the house was home to spirits of children who had met unfortunate fates long ago. Legend had it that a young family had once resided there, their lives filled with joy and laughter. However, tragedy struck when a devastating fire engulfed the house one fateful night, trapping the innocent children inside. The town mourned their loss, and the charred remains of the house stood as a grim reminder of the lives lost too soon. Years passed, and the stories of the children's ghost grew more vivid. People claimed to have seen flickering lights and heard laughter from the house. The town's children would dare each other to approach the eerie place at dusk, exchanging spine-chilling tales of encounters with the departed children. One evening, a curious and brave young girl named Emily decided to unravel the mystery surrounding the house. She had heard the tale whispers among friends, and her heart was filled with the mix of fear and compassion for the children's spirits said to reside there. Emily ventured into the woods, her footsteps careful and deliberate. As the sun began to descend, casting an orange glow over the landscape, she approached the abandoned Victorian house. The creaking floorboards and the overgrown vines clinging to the walls added to the eerie atmosphere. Heart pounding, Emily pushed open the rusted front door. Inside, she found a world frozen in time, place forgotten dreams and lost innocence. Cobwebs adorned the corners, and dust danced in the rays of light that filtered through the cracked windows. She explored each room, feeling a particular presence, a whispered touch of the past. In a forgotten corner, she stumbled upon an old, worn-out teddy bear. Its once vibrant colors faded with time. As she picked it up, a soft giggle echoed through the house, and Emily's fear transformed into warmth and understanding. She realized that the children's spirits had never meant harm. Instead, they longed for connection, for someone to remember them, and for their stories to be told. Moved by compassion, Emily began visiting the house regularly, bringing fresh flowers to place on the windowsill, playing games with individual companions, and sharing stories of her adventures with the departed children. Over time, the town started to see the abandoned house with new eyes. No longer a place of dread, it became a symbol of resilience, love, and remembrance. The child ghost, once restless and unseen, found solace in the presence of Emily, and the town growing appreciation for their memory. As years went by, the town transformed the old Victorian house into a community center dedicated to honoring the lost children and providing a safe space for the living ones. The laughter of the children echoed through its walls once again, filling the house with its sense of joy and healing. And so, the children ghost found peace, forever etched in the hearts of those who had come once to know their stories. Their presence served as a reminder that even the afterlife, the innocence of childhood endures, and the power of compassion can heal even the most lingering ghosts. Okay, I don't know why, but every house I've moved in has always had the tall shadow guy with the top hat kind of thing. A few months ago, I went walking through my house, and he was in the hallway. I jumped back and turned the light on, and he was gone. For the first time ever, it showed a face, and it was really scary. Yesterday, I heard a story about the Hat Man, and it described the same guy to a perfect T, but no face. Why does he show up in every house I live in? And why did it have a face this time? No one in my family sees him, only I do. What's the deal with that? This happened sometime when I was in middle school, so almost 10 years ago, and I can still remember it as if it happened yesterday. It's not super spooky or anything, but it's upsetting in a way because I have no explanation for it. Whenever I tell friends about it, they say they get chills. It happened when I was in the shower. My mom and I were the only ones in the home at the time, and she was outside gardening. In the middle of the shower, I heard the bathroom door open, and it was a very distinct sound to it, and it was kind of weird. And I was kind of weirded out because I don't know why my mom would come in the bathroom when I wasn't taking a shower instead of just waiting a few minutes. We had a shower curtain, but still maybe it was just me. I don't know. I stood there awkwardly for a few moments. Then I heard the sound again. So I was like, oh, okay, she's gone. I can carry on. I finished, got out, got dressed, and went outside and asked my mom lightheartedly why she came in the bathroom when I was showering. She was genuinely confused. She said, "What do you mean? I've been out here the whole time." That's when my stomach dropped. Hello, Reddit. I want to share my experience I have had with something rather strange. Only a few people know about this incident, but I feel like I needed to get this out there. Before I start, I would like to give you context to the layout of the apartment where I used to live. It was a 3-floor apartment building in which me and my family lived on the second floor. Now, once you get into the apartment, there was a little walkway. You go through the front door, and to the right, there's a closet, which couldn't have been any more than 3 feet away from the entrance. You look to your left, and it was a little walkway that couldn't have been any more than 4 feet. You pass through the threshold, and immediately you're within the middle of the living room and the dining room. This will be all important later in the story. Now, this was back in the early summer of '96 on a Saturday night. I was only 15 at the time, and I was in the living room with my aunt who was sleeping on the couch while I was laying down and watching television. I would say it was around 12:38 a.m. I remember the time because while I was flickering through channels, the time was displayed on the top right side of the screen. It was dark with the only light emanating from the TV. I just happened to find something interesting to watch. Then I suddenly felt a sense of dread. I tried to shake it off, but it just stayed in the pit of my stomach. Minutes after, something told me to look in the direction of the small walkway with the entrance of the apartment, where the entrance of the apartment is. It was almost as if something forced me to look that way. You know how if you were in class and you're just sitting there minding your own business and you feel like eyes are on you, then so happen to turn in the direction of the person staring at you? It was sort of like that. Once I looked, immediately noticed there was a tall, dark figure over 6 feet staring at me from the shadows. The man was blacker than the shadows that he stood within. I mean, like jet black. I did a double take and then squinted under the impression that maybe I was just seeing things. But no, he was still standing there, watching me. It was like once he seen me notice him, and he was satisfied, and he slowly turned around and walked past the entrance to the apartment, going straight through the closet. I was utterly shocked, as well as terrified when I noticed this. My 15-year-old brain couldn't wrap around what I just witnessed. I sat there still staring at the direction and trying to process the whole ordeal. I snapped out of it and quickly going to the closet to see if anyone was in there. To my horror, there wasn't. The front door never opened, nor did the closet door, which baffled me in utter disbelief. I went and tried to wake up my aunt to tell her about the situation that just occurred. My aunt, groggily from being awakened from her deep sleep, said, "T, you watch too many scary movies. It wasn't real. Now go back to sleep." But I assure you that it is absolutely real. The scariest thing of it all is it almost felt like time stopped, like an outer body experience. I felt like I was stuck in limbo somewhere. It was like being present in between two different realities at the same time. I've had other strange things happen to me, but this one, however, was by far the scariest encounter that I have ever had. This was in 2008. I was 8 years old. Me and my cousins were at my nana's, and we were exchanging shirts in one of the back bedrooms. Me and her only a couple months apart. The door was cracked open, maybe about 2 to 3 inches, and that's when we see a black shadow figure. We thought it was the lighting, and we thought it was my little brother being a creep looking at us. He was 2 years younger than us. As we were looking at him, my little brother's hand hit the windowsill of the bedroom from the outside. There was no way it could have been him in the doorway, because he was climbing in the window as we seen it. We climbed in the window a lot. We learned how to climb in the window from our older brothers. It was just really spooky. Allow me to give you some backstory. I'm not a strong believer in the paranormal or ghost, or anything around or about that, but on the same note, I'm not completely against it. And I love the stories and videos and the thought that stuff like that exists. But about a year ago, I wanted to explore my house with some paranormal equipment. House was built in the 1940s. Not a conjuring house, but something's gotta be here. I called my sister and asked if I got the equipment if she was in, and she said yes. We talked, then ended the call. The second I hung up, I got a bloody nose. I've always had issues with bloody noses, but it was a very weird timing for it. I chalked it up to the fact that it's the beginning of summer, humidity, and stuff like that. But present day, I called my sister 30 minutes ago and asked when she wanted to do the exploring thing that we planned. We made a date, talked like normal, and hung up. And again, when I hung up, I got another bloody nose. I went to see a doctor about the first one, and he told us to get a humidifier for the house, and we did. So it wasn't temperature or humidity. I don't know what to think anymore. Does anyone got anything? All comments help, and thank you. Apologies in advance, as this is a little long-winded, hopefully worth the read. I have lived in Connecticut for the majority of my adult life, mostly in the house in a quiet upper middle class neighborhood. I moved into this house when I was about 9 years old and lived there till I was 23, minus several years due to military active duty service. I remember being a little weirded out by the house from the day we moved in as a kid. Every so often, I would just get this feeling like I was being watched on occasion. Fast forward when I was about 14. There were many changes going on in my life. My older brother moved away to college, both grandparents became very ill, and caused a lot of financial stress on my parents as they were spending a lot of money to assist them with medical care, recovery, and rehab. So, my first encounter, around when I was 14 to 15, came one night where I woke up very early in the morning to the sound of very heavy breathing, which sounded like it was coming from my room. I lay there motionless in my bed for what seemed like an eternity, as this breathing continued until I gathered the courage to sit up. When I sat up, the breathing noise left my room, but I could hear it in different parts of the house, moving from my brother's room to my parents' room, back and forth, until about 6 a.m., when my father woke up to go to work. I asked my parents and my siblings about the noise, and they just ignored it. and said I was dreaming or that it was someone snoring. But my second occurrence, about 6 months, maybe a year later, came very early in the morning, where I woke up from a dead sleep, unable to lift any part of my body except for my head very slightly. Several seconds later, I saw a face. Appeared very skeletal, inches from my face, and this being just stayed there and smiled very menacingly until I was able to faintly utter Jesus' name, which directly after I was able to move every part of my body almost immediately after. I told my parents about this encounter the next morning, which they again dismissed as a dream or sleep paralysis. Fast forward to when I was about 23. From 15 to 23, I never really experienced anything like either of these things again, except for a few bouts of the feeling of being watched. I served in the military and returned home for a few years while I was in the school, etc., and started dating my now wife. She frequently slept over in this house while we were dating, but due to it being a fairly strict Christian household, we were prohibited from sleeping in the same room. My girlfriend, now wife, slept over on average at least once a night for probably about 6 months or so. One night, she was sleeping over and I was getting her room ready for the night, and she divulged to me that she didn't like sleeping downstairs alone. Curious, I asked why. As a side note, I never told her about any of my experiences I had in this house, for fear that she'd think I was crazy or messing with her. To which she said that someone walks around upstairs all night long. I told her that it was probably my younger brother, who usually stayed up late at night watching TV or playing video games, or my father getting ready for work, who left early in the morning. She rejected the idea and adamantly said that it was all night long, just someone or something walking back and forth, back and forth. She specified that the noise was coming from the upstairs living room, which, as another side note, was a running joke in the family that this specific living room was never used by anyone, and definitely not anyone all night long, pacing back and forth. She went on to tell me that she would sometimes hear very loud breathing coming from downstairs and moving around the house at random times and intervals. The same heavy breathing noise I was hearing all those years ago. Long story short, we don't live in that house anymore. Thanks for reading.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross